What's up everyone, Alex here. Before I start with the review proper, I want to take you back to 2016 when I reviewed Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. When I got that game to review, I said to myself, okay, I know the cover is a huge spoiler in and of itself, but I want to review this game by merely framing it as Kiryu's last adventure. And considering that, at the time, the folks at RGG were determined to make it his last, I felt that it was the best way to frame the video and tug on fans' emotional heartstrings a little bit. Fast forward more than half a decade later, and RGG announces Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, which features Kiryu front and center despite the events of the aforementioned title. And while the Like a Dragon series, as the Yakuza series is actually called in Japan, delivers a brand of Asian melodrama that is unsurpassed by any other series out there, it offers so much more than just a gripping story. It's got incredible combat and gameplay systems that interconnect and intertwine, along with a ton of mini-games and activities that bring its cities to life. And when you consider all of that, stepping into Like a Dragon Gaiden, much like Kiryu's wish to end his self-imposed exile, is like coming home in the best possible way. And it does so in a way that only RGG Studios can. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, is set after the events of Yakuza 6 The Song of Life, with events that transpire alongside 2020's Yakuza Like a Dragon. The footage you're seeing right now is captured from the PS5 version of the game, and I'd like to thank SEGA for providing me with this game code. The once legendary Yakuza, Kazuma Kiryu, has been in self-imposed exile after the events of Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. Taking a few hired jobs here and there, Kiryu is forced upon a plot that threatens to unravel the mysterious organization that's protecting him, leading to a rescue mission that will not only endanger his hidden solitude, but also his loved ones. If you've played Yakuza or any of the Judgment games, then you might think that you know what to expect with Gaiden's combat. That said, while Kazuma Kiryu returns as the lead in this one, he brings along with him many of the lessons RGG has learned with making both Yakuza Like a Dragon and both games in the Judgment series. For starters, the new agent fighting stance reflects a martial arts style that is more reminiscent of the way Yagami fights in the Judgment games. This style features punches and kicks that offer multiple hits with a single button press, overwhelming your opponents by pummeling them with rapid blows, and relying more on Kiryu's speed than his brute strength. There's also a really cool spider wire that lets you restrain opponents, and even throw them around, which is a really fun way to manage large crowds. This contrasts heavily with Kiryu's trademark Dragon of Dojima style, which heavily relies on his brute strength and remains mostly unchanged from the Yakuza games. What's great about the inclusion of these two distinct styles is that it also acts as an acknowledgement by RGG of what they've been through over the past several years. Gaiden's combat gets more interesting when you start to consider when to use either of these unique fighting styles. While it's tempting to simply label the agent fighting style as ideal for dealing with multiple enemies, I found that Kiryu's Dragon of Dojima style to be just as effective. Part of why that is because of the kinds of gear you choose to equip yourself with, as well as the kinds of skills and abilities you purchase early on. And while this isn't a new thing in this series at all, I found that the combination of gear and skill purchases really feels like it affects your build a bit more in this one. And regardless of what style you choose, unlike the fast yet comparatively weak-bodied Yagami, Kiryu can take a beating and get back up quick if needed. Combat aside, one important aspect of the series to me is its side quests. While it's never truly required to fully complete every game's side quests, its stories provide a different glimpse into the cities you visit, which are often short, quirky, and very entertaining. In Like a Dragon Gaiden, side quests are tied to a system called the Akame Network. Simply put, the more side quests or activities you do, the more points you'll earn to level up the network. Completing side quests and activities will also yield Akame points, which you can also use to upgrade your skills. And reaching certain levels in the Akame Network will open up even more quests and stories. This is probably one of my favorite features in an RGG game to date, And maybe it's just because I like knowing that my constant side questing and karaoke is going towards something that can yield even more things to do down the line. Speaking of side quests and stories, there's at least a couple of things I want to point out about Like a Dragon Gaiden. First off, Gaiden is a Japanese word meaning side story. Its full Japanese name is Ryuga Gotoku 7 Gaiden, which implies that the story featured is meant to parallel the events of Ryuga Gotoku 7, which is Yakuza Like a Dragon in the West. But because it's considered a side story, its plot is understandably shorter than other games in the series. My playthrough lasted a little over 15 hours while dabbling in several side quests and activities, though I've heard people mention that they've beelined the main story and finished it in far less time than that. That being considered, I will have to say that my enjoyment of games has little bearing on the length of time I'm able to spend in it. Rather, I value the quality of the entire experience of playing it, noting particularly for Like a Dragon Gaiden that it's engaging and immersive throughout. I don't often use the latter word in my reviews because that implies cutting-edge high-fidelity graphics and sound. But in Like a Dragon Gaiden's case, it's all about the believability of its world, and its ability to lull you towards an arcade game or a shiny that's dangling right in front of you. The myriad of things you can do in a Yakuza / Like a Dragon game are massive, and a completionist's nightmare, especially if you played and 100%ed every game's completion list. But when you consider these side activities as backdrop to your overall experience through the narrative, you can't help but feel as though you have more freedom than the average level-based action game. And of course, what is an RPG game without an engaging plot? And given how much of the game is reliant on your knowledge of both Yakuza 6 and Yakuza Like a Dragon, I'll warn you about watching further into this section. You've been warned. Like a Dragon Gaiden goes over the ending of Yakuza 6 The Song of Life really quickly by showing how Kiryu made a bargain with the Daidoji group to hide their secrets in exchange for faking his own death. And while the idea of Kiryu never seeing his kids at the orphanage is heartbreaking indeed, this isn't anything new for Kiryu. After all, he'd disappeared from their lives before in Yakuza 5, working elsewhere as a cab driver. RGG probably recognized this as well, and figured out a way to bring him back for Yakuza Like a Dragon. But because his appearance in said game felt a bit abrupt, RGG saw an opportunity to bring Kiryu back in a Gaiden-style game. Moreover, this proved to be a great opportunity to tie every single RGG Studio franchise, including Judgment, and cohesively mesh them together, making Gaiden's place in the overall timeline as more of an Avengers Infinity Wars-esque kind of narrative that considers every event that's happened since Kiryu's death, in quotes. This retroactively gives meaning and purpose to every game from Yakuza 6 onward, which conversely increases our own enjoyment and appreciation for playing said games. But the kicker here is that Gaiden actually sets up Kiryu's well-publicized appearance in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And while a few people may think that Kiryu should be put out to pasture, there's not a doubt in anyone's mind that the man is still an important figure in the series. And for him to just blindly obey Daidoji with very little resistance isn't in Kiryu's character after all. Kiryu's servitude under the Daidoji group is based on the concept that his children at the orphanage could be kept safe. But as with Yakuza 5, Kiryu's best intentions are often met with strong opposition. This is all to say that Gaiden's initial setup and the journey it takes the player through is peak Yakuza fiction. It's a story that reminds us of the best the series has offered, and why we fell in love with Kiryu to begin with. It is rife with horrible people that you'll want Kiryu to punch through a wall, and characters that you'll want to help and get to know. And when Gaiden ends and you finally see it through, you'll be glad that RGG managed to make the Dragon of Dojima's return into something truly special and worthy of praise. Kiryu's journey through the Yakuza series left an indelible mark on video games for me, where instead of hashing things out with words, bulky men settle things with their fists. And while this might sound barbaric in real life, the world Kiryu lives in allows for this sort of absurdity, which conversely allows him to partake in other silly side activities. If there's one thing that I can truly say about Like a Dragon Gaiden, is that it reminds us of the very best the Yakuza series offered, and what RGG could potentially tap into the future with Kiryu. And as much as we would like him to have a happy ending, I'm quite pleased to learn that Kiryu still has more left in the tank beyond the somber ending of Yakuza 6: The Song of Life. This is all to say that I want more Kiryu in the future. My producer Chloe, the cat, wanted me to remind you of the Backlog Battle Patreon. For the low price of $5 a month, you get early access to reviews, list videos, and more before they're officially out. We've released over 100 videos in early access, and by subscribing, you'll even get your name listed at the end of every video, and gain access to a secret Patreon-only Discord channel. So head on over to patreon.com/backlogbattle and keep the dream alive and become a part of our Patreon. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.